You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece, chapter 1119, titled Emet. And Travis, all I have to say to you is, God, Emet, when was the last time we did a non-One Piece episode on this podcast?
3 weeks ago, but that was extremely punny of you. That one caught me off guard, I admit.
Took me a minute. As usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this point. So if you've not yet read chapter 1119, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website or the Shonen Jump app, which we link in the show notes all the time. And remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release. Or you can just read them whenever you want if you subscribe to Shonen Jump, which Travis and I are both subscribed and recommend for all you One Piece super fans. And now, Travis, I know you're ready to talk about this chapter. You asked me before we started recording if it's cooking time, if it's time to cook. And I'll say it's a little hard because of this heat. It's very hot
in
the world right now. Yeah, in California, it's in the 100s, getting up to the 110s. And is there a way to stay cool, Travis? I want to be cool.
I mean, I don't think that I have anything that's going to help with climate change whatsoever. But what I will say is, if you want to, but if you want to feel cool, you could try hanging out in the In Between Drafts Discord server.
Wait, we have a Discord server again? I thought it got shut down by the government.
No. That was you thought that somebody had impersonated us and then it had gotten shut down. But that was like 2 weeks ago. So you're already you skipped an episode or something.
Well, Travis, I guess nothing would make me feel cooler than hanging out with One Piece fans. I mean, I bring that up at bars all the time. And tell me more about this Discord server that I have amnesia about.
Well, of course, you can join the Discord and talk about this episode of Rookie Pirate Radio, ongoing One Piece spoiler discussion. We also have a less spoilery zone, so if you want to talk about the new live-action developments that are coming through this week from Netflix, you can come do that. But in addition to all of that cool One Piece stuff, you can actually check out everything that we cover on InBetweenDrafts.com, from music, movies, TVs. I said TVs for some reason. Manga, books, you name it. We have people chatting about it in that Discord. It's a hip and hoppity place right now. We're all kind of coping over Chainsaw Man, which is a series John tells me he's never heard of, so we may have to do something about that. It definitely doesn't sound
like an anime I watched and binged last year.
Yeah, definitely not. But yeah, the current Chainsaw Man chapter has that channel and a little bit of a tizzy for reasons. So you can come cope with us about that. There's so much more. Deadpool and Wolverine's coming out soon, so I'm sure we'll have takes galore in the Discord. Come check it out, hang out with us. And, worst case, tell me how bad I am at theorizing.
I do want to squash this rumor before it starts that I was saying in farce that I have never heard of Chainsaw Man. I don't want our emails to get flooded. Speaking of emails, Travis Hymas, I guess we could also recommend the email as well. Maybe somebody will want to send an email for fun. Why not? We should let them know about it.
Email address?
We do.
Since when?
It had a typo, which someone blissfully told us that on the episode notes, we had a typo on there for who knows how long. But it's rookiepirateradio@gmail.com, not rookapiratradio@gmail.com, as the typo would suggest. I'll say it again, just in case I typoed that sentence verbally. It's rookiepirateradio@gmail.com. Can't wait to tell my parents. And speaking of somebody who reached out, there is a way also that there is another method. There is something else you can do that I just learned about, Travis. Did you know that on Spotify, you can actually ask questions to a podcast on there?
I only know that because you told me before we started recording.
That's right. I sent you a screenshot. But yeah, somebody very kindly asked a question of it's not even a question. It's like an interacting. I don't totally understand it, but basically they were able to say, "Oh, hey guys, like the podcast. There's a typo," and said, then which is really nice. And I just want to thank that person. But I also didn't even realize that Spotify had reviews and ratings and stuff until like a while ago. But yeah, we have stars. We have more stars on Spotify, I think, than we do on Apple Podcasts, which is really nice. I guess the folks, they're finding us on Spotify. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
But okay, I guess that's enough. I don't even want to call it housekeeping. That was way more fun than housekeeping. Didn't feel like a chore to me. But I guess, Travis, it's time to talk about the latest chapter of One Piece, which I guess is something we usually do.
That is kind of the premise. I think it's what people are here for.
Chapter 1119, it's called Emet. And I could spend an hour just talking about that because the translation's throwing me off. And I have been migraining over this because it's Emeto, not Emet, and it's katakana, and I don't know. Travis, I've gone through all my dictionaries. I've tried to figure out if it's like a katakana for a non-English language, which is what I suspect. I've seen all kinds of theories. I've seen all kinds of speculation. Oh, it's like the backwards. It's the Temeraire series because that's dragons and pirates, and I think you mentioned something before we started recording.
Yeah, I have my own suggestions where I think pulling in external media will be useful here. We should probably recap the whole chapter before we start doing language breakdowns again on this podcast.
Yeah, but it is referring to the name of a certain character that we'll get to. But as far as the cover story goes, that's fun. It's Yamato, our best friend, mine and Travis's best friend. Although, Travis, I don't know, is Yamato... We both are already married, so we can't have Yamato be our best man / maid of honor. I guess that's the case. But anyway, it says Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage, Volume 9, Kibi pelted with rocks by children who hate Kaido. So Yamato is still on her way to kind of tour the world, the island of Wano like Odin did. And interestingly running into people who don't like her because of Kaido, which is something we haven't really explored with that character, kind of reckoning with, people not trusting her because of her dad. And so maybe that'll be a fun little vein of the cover story that we'll get, finding her running into more people who are like, oh yeah, your dad made our lives miserable for decades. And that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good juxtaposition for the whole setup where everybody was cheering and fawning, and she leaves the capital city and they're all waving goodbye and everything, and then it cuts straight to this. That is kind of very nice.
Yeah. Thanks as always. This is the Viz translation, so thanks to Steve and Paul for translating this chapter for us in English. Always does much better job than I do. And Vanessa Satone doing the lettering. All right, so we kick off, interestingly enough, with a scene between Stussy and Kaku. So if you remember, Stussy basically asked Edison, before Edison croaked, I guess we're assuming that Edison croaked, that seems to be the case, if she can let Kaku go and kind of refer to Kaku as a friend. But this chapter kind of reckons with that, where Kaku sort of has to tell Stussy, kind of like an old Yeller situation, get going, get gone. It kind of seems like Kaku doesn't necessarily hate Stussy, but is kind of trying to push her away because he knows that Lucci is going to rip her to pieces. And so he's trying to basically old Yeller her away, just be like, get out of here, kid. And it's sad. It's so sad because Stussy is nice and kind. And you know what? Stussy can be your best man and Yamato can be mine. How about that?
There you go. There you go.
We figured it out.
It's that classic One Piece thing, right? Where to try to set someone free, they act tough and get out of here. I think of Dr. Kureha throwing the scalpels at Chopper, trying to scare him off, basically. That kind of vibe is really what I get. You can tell in that last panel that he did not enjoy doing that.
Yeah, there's one little, you see Kaku's face too. You could tell he doesn't mean it. But anyway, we cut to where last week's chapter ended, and that is Luffy and Bonney relishing in Bonnie's Gear 5th. Definitely enjoying Bonney in the Nika form much more than a vocal minority of the community last week. That is for sure. But the Marines are reacting to this, the Giants are reacting to this, the kind of the way that you would expect. I guess some people are sort of being like, oh, so that's why Luffy's poster looks like that. That's, an explanation there. And then, some people are saying oh, there's two Nikas, but Itsumade says oh, it's just an illusion. The age fruit. It's basically Itsumade is a Redditor as well this week. Just being it's not real. Know your place. Excuse me, Bonney, but you didn't work hard to do the Gear 5th. And I'm surprised Itsumade doesn't have glasses on at the moment. Nothing against glasses. I'm wearing them, but yeah.
A Redditor is easily the most scandalous accusation leveled at a gorosei yet.
we've said some terrible things about the gorosei. The gorosei have done terrible things, but it's never gotten this serious. But yeah, so Luffy kind of takes charge here. He is the captain, and he's saying, like, listen up. You know, he's kind of looking at his crew and saying that we're not going to be able to hurt these folks. We're not going to be able to defeat the gorosei. We can't hurt them, can't rip them up, can't crush them. But what they can do is send them flying. So Luffy comes up with a plan. He turns into a huge kind of armament Haki balloon, which is precious. And he commands the Straw Hats closest to him, and that includes Bonney, to wail on him as hard as they can. And so the idea is that he's going to be able to balloon Itsumade away. And so Sanji and Franky get into motion and are like, all right, let's do it. Bonney is kind of like, you want me to punch you? So like Bonnie's kind of like little kid innocence is coming out there. And also there's still a lot of chaos happening with the Marines and the fire. So you do get a little check in on that to kind of show the stakes that they need to do something, because even if the Straw Hats get away, Itsumade is wreaking havoc on the giant pirates. So Luffy in his balloon form puts both hands on Itsumade to hold the gorosei in place, the elder. And then Sanji says something very interesting here. He says, "Captain's orders, Bonney." That's strange because, you know,
that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Who's captain? Because does Bonney take orders from a captain? Anyway, and then Franky sets up his strong impact move. And then, then Bonney does her supersize Nika, and you can see it's coded in armament Haki, which is interesting, and uses an attack called Memories, Right Punch, or I don't know if that's like a combination of things, but
yeah.
Anyway.
So it's Ifrit, Jumbo, Hell Memories, and then Strong Impact Right, and then Supersize Nika Punch.
That's what I suspected. Yeah, because I was like, all right, Bonnie's attack isn't that complicated. And then Luffy says that hurts because, like, yeah, it's going to hurt if you use Haki. There's been a lot of consternation about this over whether or not that means that Franky used Haki, but it's not confirmed because you don't see armament Haki on Franky's punch, and he could literally, like, Luffy could literally just be saying, like, Sanji and Bonney, are using Haki, which is clear.
He's responding to Bonney specifically.
That's true.
Luffy's dumb, but he does know what people's voices sound like.
But I'm that weirdo who's of two minds when it comes to Franky, and we can put this to bed. I think that Franky, like, he could have Haki and we wouldn't know it because he's literally a machine, and so armament Haki just might be invisible. B, he doesn't need it. He accounts for it in other ways. So, like, if it turned out that he doesn't have armament Haki, don't care. He's still Franky and he rules. Anyway, so the attack that Luffy sends Itsumade fighting with is called Dawn Balloon. Wonderful. And we have like a Team Rockets blasting off again kind of moment for the gorosei there. But then, so Luffy calls out to the giants, wondering where Usopp's group is. Interesting that he calls it Usopp's group around the giants, by the way. But they're running late. Sanji is saying that they should be coming down any second. Atlas decides that she's going to go try to find out, which is a fun little death flag for Atlas there. Definitely a sign that, we're down to 2 of these Vegapunks at this point, and who knows what's going to happen next with them. We also see the Iron Giant, who is still underwater, but the Den Mushi, like, snail apparently is, like, woken up or something, or isn't as, like, in dire straits at the moment, and is able to transmit more of the message. So we get some more words, but actually nothing of the sort. We don't really know the context. That's all we get coming out of that. We do cut to Whole Cake Island, which is interesting. I've been wanting to cut to there for a while now. We see Katakuri and a bunch of the other mainstays who, of course, didn't go to Wano with Smoothie and them. But yeah, so they're kind of remarking on what's going on, or like, oh, yeah, it's back on. More of the message says, maybe I should just say, like, the whole message and then explain what's happening so it's not pieced in a weird way. So, but actually nothing of the sort, which you might consider a will inherited through the years. Can only pray that those at the mercy of this reason will be able to hear this message. So yeah, the message is kind of garbled. Even reading it all the way through, it's kind of like, all right, so the will of D, he's clearly talking about that still, but it's not super clear what exactly he's talking about at the moment. And we even have like some of the pirates on Whole Cake Island be like, what's he talking about?
What's up?
Which is what we're all saying as well, for sure. We do see Big News Morbin and Vivi again, who are like, oh no, oh, it's back. The message is back. The picture is fixed as somebody in another scene. I forget where that was supposed to be. I have to zoom in. We also see York at one point, and York says like, oh, so like basically the message only stopped temporarily, and yeah, the memory and mental waves of transmission snail are working on separate circuits. So they have to destroy the snail directly. They can't just send the Iron Giant into the ocean. But then, funny enough, we see Gaimon hasn't been seen in a long time. Travis, decades?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
We were really just doing the world tour. You know, this is what Justin Timberlake was talking about, for sure. But yeah, we see Luffy, yet again, who starts to notice that something is like crashing all around them. At first he thinks it's rain or bombs, but no, it is the Cypher Pole agents. Somehow they are flying down here, and it turns out it's because of, what's his name? The sandworm dude. I'm always mixing up these gorosei.
This is Jupiter.
Jupiter, thank you. Is spitting out all of the Cypher Pole agents that he apparently swallowed. I don't know when he did that, because I guess like when Nostro cut the thing in half, I remember Workery was chasing Luffy and Dorian Brogy, but the sandworm was kind of going back and forth. The geography, all this stuff, the geo placements is very unclear to me. But anyway, they're trying to avoid what is basically a Cypher Pole attack of a different kind. And then the sandworm starts to suck in the big giant ship, which just tells you how big the sandworm is. That's big enough to suck that whole thing in. They're trying to stop. The giants are trying to row away. That's when Luffy punches the sandworm in the face. The giants cheer him on. It's wonderful. We get another cut of Doll, by the way, who's, just still in the child form. Thank you, Bonney, for taking care of that. We see Workery, though, so like they're not quite done yet. And Workery comes basically to attack them. And Luffy is like kind of on the back foot, so it doesn't look like he's going to be able to protect the ship. And it looks like Workery is about to use that super tough head of his to, I guess, if nothing happens, destroy the giant ship. Oh no. But we also see Bonney can't help either, because she is in Sanji's arms at this point and has reverted to her child's size. So W for John, because didn't John say that would happen? Exactly. I guess I did.
We all do that? Like anybody who thought about it for more than like 10 seconds?
Yeah. Take my W away from me, right? Why don't you? But yeah, she says that freedom is tiring, which I agree, Bonney. It very much is. But so is fascism, to be fair. But yeah, so then we see or we hear some kind of either a memory or a voice transmitting to Luffy. And it says, Joy Boy, remember, Emet, only when the time is right. So I think it's basically saying that this is a conversation between the Iron Giant and Joy Boy at some point, which could be hinting at another John W., but we'll get to it. And of course, this seems to be the revelation that this was Joy Boy saying to the Iron Giant, calling the Iron Giant Emet or Emeto to do something, but only when the time is right. And then him asking, time is right? And then all of a sudden, the Iron Giant erupts from the sea and punches Workery, breaks off a tusk, and looks to really do some damage. And then, of course, the giants, in their Nika sort of awakened cartoon eyes, react, of course, and then we see Luffy basically losing his mind. If you think Luffy loses his mind seeing Franky's like General Franky robot, this is just another level, a wonderful panel, a perfect panel, some would say. And that is the end of the chapter. Break next week. That was a long one, even though it wasn't that many pages it was only 13, but it felt long to me. Travis,
a lot going on.
What say you?
Do we want to do language etymology stuff again to get that out of the way? Or do we want to celebrate Jewelry Bonney getting a captain?
I want to start
because I know you want that high.
I want to start with one John W. We can get to the other ones, but the first one, I'm being so prideful and arrogant. But okay, I really think that this makes sense, that the giant is coming out of the water and still has more to go. I think all the people who were saying like, oh, it got defeated so easily. It's like, okay, relax.
It got knocked on its butt. Come on. Like,
yeah. And also, I mean, you have to think that Bonney kind of taking on the Nika form is what helped this giant thing emerge and all that stuff. But there's so much to say about this. I mean, that whole conversation, like, only when the time is right. What does that mean, Travis?
What does it mean? Does it mean go to the red line? Does it mean strike the gorosei? Like, what could, like,
when you hear the drums of liberation?
Yeah, like, what is he supposed to do?
Now, I'm still of the opinion, by the way, that this is a conversation they had 200 years ago, not 800 years ago. Now, it could still be. So what I'm thinking is it's one of two things, maybe. One, the obvious Occam's razor is that this is the last thing Joy Boy said to Emeto before, he's like, only when the time is right. And then maybe Emeto, like, went to the red line to marry Joa and was like, oh, this isn't the right time. Or Emeto went to the red line, had one last meeting with Joy Boy 200 years ago before Joy Boy finally died or something, like I was talking about on the last chapter, my whole theory around that. And apparently the time wasn't right, that it was still 200 years away. It was too early. Which, by the way, I think is another kind of indication to me that Toki had to be in on all of this stuff. I feel like that's got to be the case, because Toki, we know, has just been like, setting up so much of this.
Yeah, we've talked before about whether or not there's like a prediction devil fruit or observation Haki so powerful it can like foresee the future like this. There's been some implications for some time that there is not a prophecy, because that would imply that it's much more vague than it is. But ever since we kind of knew that Roger operated under the idea that he was too early for stuff, there is someone record keeping all of this. Presumably Joy Boy, but it could be someone associated with him. So this has to be something very specific. There's no way it's not, right? Like you're right. Like, Toki knew of a certain period of time she was trying to reach. She was trying to be in Wano for it. Does this specifically tie into the robot? I don't know, because she already jumped ahead of the robot by that point, right? But they have to be connected in some way. There has to be some sort of like larger machination behind all of this, right?
That's what I'm thinking, for sure. For sure. I know you want to talk about the name of this giant, Emet, E-M-E-T. The katakana, like I was saying before, it's the symbol Emeto.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that. And I don't know, man. Wait, what did you want to say about it? What are you thinking?
So, ironically, I made a joke about Narnia last week about how, like, oh yeah, the allegories that Oda uses here is kind of like Narnia. And there's a character in the later Chronicles of Narnia books with a very similar name. It's Emet. So there's like an H at the end there, kind of just a modification of it. But that name and the more shortened like Emet here does have Hebrew connotations.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that in the Reddit spaces.
Usually related to like truth or the truth of all things like that. If you're an RPG head like me, that this name shows up as an appendix for a villain in Final Fantasy XIV, Emet Selk, same kind of idea, pulling from that sense of truth and everything. I feel like that's the direction that this is supposed to be going in, that this is some sort of like golem that has been given life, would be kind of the implication. So, we've talked before about like, is the robot itself actually sentient? I think this is our confirmation that that's the case. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, I felt like we were way past that point. Like, I guess there's always been the parallel, right, between this kind of creature that is working off of what appears to be instinct or almost programming as a robot, mm-hmm. and Kuma in this very arc, kind of doing the same thing, also going to the red line, also kind of having these orders, right, and succumbing sort of this like weird state of like serving Nika. And it's almost like, okay, does that mean Emet was once, is Emet some kind of is it armor? You know, like I know, didn't people suggest that Emet was related to ores or had some kind of connection to ores? You know,
I have heard that. I've heard that theory because of like the horns and the scale.
I think we even talked about it actually. Yeah,
I don't think we ever really. I don't think we like really dived into it because there wasn't much to go off of except like physical characteristics.
Oh,
and, like,
no,
scale and
we talked about.
So
yeah, that's right. Because we talked about ores and Onigashima and that whole thing. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
So now what we could be seeing here is like that race or like sub race that like ores is a part of could be the factor here. But at this point, like, I would say that this is not his original form is kind of the best way to put this. Like, this wasn't a robot like constructed exclusively for like this one purpose. It really does feel like similar experiments to what Vegapunk did were performed here, like that kind of science. And that has lived on, which leads me to suggest that what we've been thinking is like, oh, hearing the drums of liberation is powering the robot as like a fuel source, because we've been juxtaposing that with the mother flame quite a bit. I think what's actually happening here is will. It's lingering willpower. The robot isn't powered by anything. That's the trick.
Yeah. Which is, going hand in hand with the Kuma thing also being powered by will. Yeah. And it fits with the broadcast at this point talking about that to some extent. And yeah, we still don't have any idea what that broadcast is really saying. And I definitely want to know, though, quite badly. I can't help but wonder, too, if, like, when you're looking at a creature like this, you're looking at Emet, and, you know, one of our scant sort of clues about what the ancient kingdom was like, or at least the world around the ancient kingdom, right? And, you know, you could even imagine, like, oh, this was just like a soldier in like a larger army, like not even that special of a character. I know a lot of people look at Emet, this giant, and are like, oh, well, a member of Joy Boy's crew, which sure could be the case, but I still have to think that, you know, it's a complicated story. I feel like there's got to be a lot of tendrils and lots of different characters. And again, the horns kind of throw me a little bit. You know, in the same chapter, we have Yamato with her horns and stuff, and all the Oni stuff, and there's still a lot of lore gap that need to be filled in. Other than that, I mean, we do have the kind of settling down of the Bonney stuff of like, oh, okay, there was a clear limit to her being able to do the Nika thing, which I think hopefully people who didn't expect that for some reason can breathe a sigh of relief. Not that, you know.
Oh, no, now this week, no, don't worry, John.
What's the new crisis?
How could Jewelry Bonney, member of the worst generation, a pirate who's been operating almost exclusively solo in the New World, how could she possibly know Haki?
What?
How in the world could it possibly be that she has Haki? You know, it's not like she's literally escaped capture from Blackbeard while retaining her devil fruit. It's not like she didn't personally make it all the way to Egghead on her own. It's not like
raised by a Kuma.
Was raised by Bartholomew Kuma. You know, no, can't be that. Can't be that at all. No, it's definitely just a fluke. It's definitely just like her devil fruit's so powerful that it's now given her the ability to access Haki, even though we've literally never seen that happen before.
No,
like, I get it. We have all kind of shifted our perspective on Bonney because of the kid thing. It is very hard to grasp, but she existed before we knew that. And we knew a lot of things. We knew she had a big bounty. We now know why she has that bounty. But that bounty grew as she was on the run. It's not like, it's the same thing with like Robin. Robin is not the same threat that she was when she was a child. She has grown. Bonney may not be a 20-something, you know, adult woman all the time, but she has lived on the Grand Line basically the entire time that the Straw Hats have been on the Grand Line.
And that's always been a much stronger indicator of who gets Haki. It's where you live, you know? Living in the Grand Line in the New World necessarily kind of impacts your fighting ability, especially a character who's like training for years because she was inspired by her father, right?
Well, and she's following her father, who's being sent to dangerous locations on the regular as a warlord of the sea. She is constantly fleeing from the Navy. Again, she has been captured by Blackbeard and got away. She's been captured by Akainu and got away. Like, this idea that she's literally snuck into Marijoa on her own. And it's not like Sabo got her out. She got herself out, right? Like, she is, if anything, one of the most competent characters that we've seen in action, at least as much as every other member of the Worst Generation. But because she's the girl one, because she's the kid one, because she's the one that they've kept almost a secret as the only one who hasn't done anything at this point, you know, and the backstory, honestly, really softens her as a character. People don't think that she's got the potential. And I don't, like, check yourself. Like, that's the only thing I can say.
She's using Haki as a kid, too.
No,
you know?
it's I mean,
she doesn't have the physical limitation because she's able to transform into her adult self.
Does that even matter? Like, I would argue that it doesn't even matter. What's the point of that? She's been like Haki from the moment it was fully introduced in the story. Oda kind of gave it that little fun asterisk that basically the only way for it to get stronger is to keep getting yourself into situations where you're almost going to die. Like, it's kind of like hey, this is how we're just always going to level up this very weird thing that I've introduced, is just, hey, as the fights get harder, they get tougher. It just, you know, it's a one-to-one kind of RPG leveling system.
Experience points.
Exactly. Yeah. So this idea that, like, Bonney has just not had to do that is, you know, people don't go, oh, Trafalgar Law has Haki. We haven't seen him use that before. When did he learn that? You don't need that explained to you. You just understand it. He's a pirate on the Grand Line. He's a pirate in the back half of the Grand Line. If Don Krieg shows up when we finally deal with Blackbeard, if Don Krieg starts using Haki, then we can start asking questions. Put it that way.
I mean, yeah, if he has to have some kind of glow up for that to make any kind of freaking sense. I just briefly want to touch on, you know, I hate York. York, you suck. Do not kill Lilith and Atlas, please, because I can't take any more Vega deaths. Thank you.
They're so cooked, man. I don't know how to tell you this.
There's still, and I keep bringing this up, but we still have Vegapunk's brain out there somewhere in a tank. Yeah. What's going to happen with that? I don't know. And yeah, I think that it does seem to be a die fest there.
It does look like they're setting a trap, though. It does look like they're setting a trap, because you have that, like Atlas sends a message to Lilith specifically, like with the knowledge that they're being monitored. So, like, there seems to be a gambit, at least.
I think if we have any Vegapunk survive, I think it comes down to, I would see Lilith and York being the ones who get out of this. Atlas, I don't think so. But Lilith, I do think, has a place in the story as kind of like the last opponent to York in like a future conflict. York kind of with the world government, Lilith, you know, with whoever else, whether it be the Straw Hats or the Giants, whoever, allied and trying to like kind of carry on Vegapunk's legacy. So you basically have like a good Vegapunk, bad Vegapunk. Sure, that works. And I think Lilith is just a more interesting kind of character for that than Atlas is. I just think Atlas has always been very one note. Yeah. Basically by design. So yeah, I would say that.
That makes sense. I could see it being that way, where one of them escapes. I mean, York is getting away regardless, but like, I could definitely see that being, you know, a way of like passing on Vegapunk's will. Franky was right there, but you know, if we could do this too, that's fine. Again, it looks like there's some sort of trap that they're planning. We technically haven't confirmed Edison is dead as well.
Just that Edison has stopped connecting to Punk Records. Yeah.
So that could be the big twist. Is that
could be napping? You know?
Could have set himself up. Probably not. But
only
I think
way
the
out would be Stussy saving him. But I don't know. If that was possible, I feel like Stussy would have tried. Or, like, they seem too far away. I don't know what's going on there.
Where do you think Stussy is going to go from here?
Cover story. But I guess, yeah, I think that not going with Kaku, that seems to be the case. I would assume that she goes back to the underworld or finds Big News Morgan and is kind of our connective tissue to that whole side of the story. They obviously have their connection with, you know, Whole Cake Island arc. And I think Big News Morgan and the underworld, all that intrigue has to come into the story somehow, and Stussy is our conduit for that. And there's still a loose end with Stussy as a character, just, realizing her potential as a human and deciding to live the life that she just, doesn't see for herself.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good thought.
Who knows? Yeah, Travis is like, but actually,
no, I really
going to the moon.
I don't really have a guess, because I genuinely thought that this was going to be, she's going to let Kaku out and the three of them go off. Like we talked about, like doing like another CP9 or a CP0 follow up. But now it's kind of like I see Kaku's point of view. Like Lucci is not just going to let this go. He's not that kind of guy. He doesn't ask to save Stussy right earlier when he's talking to Mars. He asks him to spare Kaku, not her.
I just want Stussy to look at Kaku and just be like, he's not good for you, bro.
Yeah. There is the alternative that like the sound of her like walking isn't away from him, but towards him. That is true.
I just want Stussy to look at him and be like, you can do better. All right. Lucci doesn't get you like a real man should. And your hot cat related boyfriend should be someone worthy of you. And that's when she introduces him to
just a big moment of her just like holding him and be like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah. And then she takes Kaku to Zoe, and it's just like, take your pick. You want a hot leopard? There's plenty.
There you go. You think she could find Zoe, right? That's possible. I do hope she gets out of here though, because
I think you're
right. There's so many like we've really not circled back up on the whole she's a clone thing. We've kind of moved on from that. I mean, it explains like the pacifist and everything, right? And the seraphim, that they're able to do this stuff. But like, we just kind of like, we're like, yeah, you could just clone people wholesale in this story, and then just kind of haven't done anything with that, which I commend Oda for just like taking the David Lynch route, where it's just like, this is my most spiritual film, and then refusing to elaborate. I love that about him, but like, that is a big plot resource that you're just kind of like letting walk off the screen. So something would be nice to see of that.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of, I mean, where are the Seraphim at this point? Because I was kind of wondering if they were going to be in Jupiter's sandworm, because they were with the Cypherpole agents, but
they were there.
Were they in this chapter? And I missed them.
Yeah, because there's the panel of them falling,
and
then there's like a really really small panel of them catching the Seraphim specifically.
Oh, like, that's a bug. Oh, I thought that was a rock.
Yeah, no, it's like catch them or they'll die on impact. And then there's like teeny tiny panels, like the Seraphim too, and you could see the bubble.
Oh yeah, they do say that. Okay, yeah, I'm just spacing. I was zoning out. I was having too much fun reading One Piece, you know me. Yeah, so the Seraphim are there. My bad. We still have Nesjuro somewhere. Nesjuro was in the coast, right? Not sure where Nesjuro is at this point. There's also still Saturn.
Yeah, I guess he's still up at the ship with them, right? They both could still be up at the ship with.
That's it's not clear. It could be that Nesjuro is trying to catch up and could show up in the next chapter. But Saturn, I think it's safer bet that Saturn. I don't know, because Saturn also kind of went over to where the Iron Giant was, right? So I don't know if it makes sense for Saturn to try to warp all the way back to the Thousand Sunny. But I was going to say,
it's so hard to figure out where they are, because they can move. Do you think Mars teleports back, by the way?
About that. I'm getting frustrated with that. I'm getting frustrated with how broken they are as characters at this point, because if they're this powerful and they can fight for this long and without seemingly any downsides, they can teleport, they can do all this stuff. Why have they just been sitting around in Mary Jo? Like, they don't do anything, but they could so easily just like kill Kaido and Big Mom and basically control everything with force. There's got to be another piece to this that motivates them to just stay in the shadows. I know they're insects, but like they do still have motivations that they just seem to be actively ignoring.
I mean, if their goal is to cleanse the world of like the insects, right? Like, okay, do it then. Do you need the big hole punching laser beam? Because like up until literally this chapter, nobody could score a hit on you. So like, why not just rule the world like giant demonic monsters? Like, what's the angle here? The answer's got to be Emu, right? There's a reason that they did this the way that they did.
Yeah. Or, you know, I just want there to be like a clear, like, all right, because we did this, we now are vulnerable. We can't do, like, there has to be like some kind of time limit, an amount of hours or something, and then they're vulnerable, and then they can't do anything for a while, and that's why they hold back with this, because they don't want to leave Emu unprotected for too long out of pride and vanity and stuff. And it's like, well, we can't do it ourselves.
Do you think it's literally just a fluke that like Emet just like popped out of the water and punched Mercury like right when he did?
A fluke?
And yeah, just like the time just so happened to be up at that moment rather than it being anything about the giant's body. That would be funny.
I'm not following, but
so like you're saying, like there's a time limit and then they're vulnerable, right? So like it's like having the star in Mario, like you're invincible, but you're only invincible
I see what you're
for
saying.
a minute.
Yeah, okay.
So like just the time, just so the clock just like ran out in that moment, and so he has to take that hit now. Maybe that it'd be funny.
And
but
by
like,
the way, Travis, I do appreciate you know me so well you know me well enough to use Mario references to explain world building and more. I mean, that's how I know this podcast is on the right track. The hosts are on the same page.
We're like
anything
the real life
else?
Straw Hats.
Anything else you want to cover before we go to comments?
About the
captain's orders.
About the I guess we should talk about that. Do you just want to gloat for a minute?
Gloat?
Do you just want to? I said in the Discord, I was like, he's never coming off of this high.
I mean,
never.
I have been pushing this propaganda for half a year, ever since the Kuma flashback, right?
Yeah.
Kuma flashback, because I definitely had my kind of feelings about like, all right, how important is Bonney? And I was like when we were in like the Labo phase and she was hunting, you know, Vegapunk and stuff, I was like, all right, there's got to be something with this character that's going to pay off that like is worth all this fuss. And then by the time we got to that Kuma flashback, it solidified for me then, right? And that was in the 1090s, I want to say, the early 1090s. Yeah. And it's just so clear to me that this character fits right in. She's passing every test. She is, and we've talked about it ad nauseum. And for me, the way I know that it's just like, it feels right, is that when Sanji says what he says, and says it's captain's orders, like her captain, I'm not feeling like the cringe. I'm not feeling the kind of like, oh, I don't know. I'm feeling the kind of like, yeah, Bonney, listen to Sanji. He outranks you in the, you know, that's kind of where I'm at with it. And it's exciting. She's an exciting character. I think that there's just so much to do with her. We've covered this over and over again, and Oda is just laying it on thick at this point. I mean, what's the alternative, Travis?
So you are right in that there's a lot more that fits. We talked last week about, you know, how the Nika transformation combined with like the Kuma panels on top of that just really have that very familiar feel to other big Straw Hat triumph moments, right? So I think, again, I'm in agreement with you that seems where it's going. I do think that the argument that just like taking the text at face value here when it comes to like crew recruitment at this point is a little bit harder to hold on to, because like we had this with Yamato. Yamato literally said over and over again, I'm just going to join your crew. And it's not like anybody told them no. Like she just changed her mind, and it kind of happened off panel. We didn't really get that filled in until a flashback after, you know, a chapter. So it's like, I don't think that there's a better answer than what we're looking at right now, but I do think that Oda does have the absolute capacity to just kind of pull something out at the end and just be like, surprise, and just break your little heart. If we were just going off of this text. But I mean, you combine that with the other, you combine that with everything else, and like I said, it's overwhelming. It's an overwhelming case.
The only way I could even see him try to write out of this is if he's like, all right, and now Bonney is going to go evangelize Nika and be Nika in other places. And it's just, it wouldn't be satisfying. It would be like the Yamato thing, you know, just like pulling the wool. He can't do that to us twice in a row. I feel like that's the thing. It's like, fool us once, shame on, the Viz translation, I guess. But yeah,
her case is even stronger than anything else since Jinbei, for sure.
I think.
And it seems like it's the right fit, and this kind of reinforces it. I also want to stress, at this point, I think everybody can tell, Sanji absolutely knew that was a kid. Absolutely knew that was a child. So we're vindicated there. We're vindicated on the Sanji allegations. We're good.
I think they're setting it up that Sanji's going to see her as his darling, precious sister. He's going to have like a sister complex straight out of like Black Clover levels.
Well, maybe not a sister complex. Let's not put new allegations on him, but like,
I know my manga. I know my anime Trapezimus. I know what the Japanese on their Sapphire Islands decide to make it weird.
You know what? I'm not Ali. I'm not the Sanji defender anyway, so whatever.
How far is she, by the way, into the story? Side tangent.
It will not be long before she just replaces one of us on this show.
What? Replaces us? No thanks. Let's keep it real.
Highlander rules or something. She messages me all the time. She's like, let me back on the podcast.
Let me at him.
I have takes.
Yeah, I guess, we're getting close, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming she's still in Wano.
As of right now, I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go to the comments. There. Definitely a few to go to. Not as many as last week, though.
Less anger.
Pubodu said, that elder that got sent flying might meet Enel. That's another name that's close to Emet, by the way. Emet? Enel? Coincidence, Travis? Probably.
Will that stop anyone from guessing otherwise? No, heavens no. It's break week. We're going to see some crazy stuff on break week.
Kenshin Goku said, I've been thinking about this, but there is no way the elders are going to let the Marine soldiers and Cypher Pol agents live after everything they saw today, right? Since there's an article out already that Luffy kidnapped Vegapunk, I can imagine the next one is Straw Hat Luffy kills 30,000 plus Marines. I'm sure they'll want to villainize Luffy as much as possible after Egghead. That's a mighty fine, because we have been thinking the same thing for sure. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks in the community have been saying these Marines are just gonna die, right? But yeah, pinning it on Luffy just seems like the world government way. If they can get away with it, though.
Yeah,
what if Big News Morgan flies over at the last second?
I think at this point, Morgan's is he's got the story he wants. Because while the man loves himself the truth, the reality is he wants a really compelling story, and selling the idea that one of the new emperors of the sea immediately captured and killed the brightest mind in the world, that's a good story, right? He's gonna run with that.
Yeah. Even if he's a former Roger pirate, I mean, that's just kind of the kind of chaos.
Unless he's a former Roger pirate, which I still maintain is possible.
And they were probably unhinged. We shouldn't think of them as paragons, or anything like that. But anyway, Lionblade said, I was hoping that the Straw Hats and their allies would get rid of at least one of the elders, and that's exactly what happened. Thanks to Luffy, Franky, Sanji, and Bonney, it looks as if Mars went to outer space. So he's definitely not coming back for the remainder of the Egghead arc. I wouldn't hold your breath there. We really don't know how far, However, with Emet coming in strong against Workery, we could end up seeing a total of 2 elders being taken out if Emet manages to take out Workery. As for Atlas and Lilith, I'm worried that they may be planning to sacrifice themselves to stop York, who's becoming more annoying than Maleficent's pet Raven. Yeah, I think I'm definitely in agreement that I think Atlas, if something happens to Atlas, it'll be in an effort to maybe save Lilith, or I think I'm feeling very strongly that we're only one of them of each side is going to come out of this for sure. Sad though. I don't think Emet took out Workery though. I think it's just I think attack.
It's just I think I will say though, I think if it is something about his body that makes it possible for him to wound the Gorosei, this is how we get away. Which we speculated before, right? That he kind of stands between the Gorosei and the Straw Hats as they escape, because they're going to have to take that seriously.
Bionic Ranger said, goodness, did she have to use Haki? Also, I know Emet is a power word having to do with golems in Jewish mythology. Emet means truth and is inscribed on the golem as sort of its activation phrase. You can deactivate them by removing the aleph symbol from the word, which turns it into the Yiddish or Hebrew. I don't know which word for death. I'm not Jewish, but my neighborhood is mostly Jewish, so I have some surface knowledge. Interesting. Maybe the snail represents that truth, and it'll keep going until the transmission ends. You know, one thing about this too, if people are a little bit like, oh, Jewish, stuff, like how does that kind of tie into One Piece already? Well, Egyptian mythology, Jewish history, a lot of that stuff is intertwined. I could very much see, like, especially with the Bible stuff in this arc with Kuma, I could very much see Oda pulling from, for example, like the story of Moses, the 10 Commandments, the plagues, right? Like there's already been stuff like that in the story. There were plagues and, like, what was it, Kaido's crew or whatever? So yeah, there's a lot of room for that there.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to, right? Like, even if this was like a new thing, Oda always borrows cultural, resources to tell to world build and tell the story. It'd be weirder if he didn't use something like this, right?
Pretty normal. Pikeman said, how funny would it be if the Thousand Sunny landed on top of one of the elders? Would they even feel that? I would like that. That'd be funny.
That would be.
Which one? Epic Pwned Edge 117. This is a new commenter. Not Yamato getting hit by rocks. He did nothing wrong. Yeah, but we talked about this. That's the story. There's Yamato is going to have to win the hearts of people. It's the whole thing. That's the conflict. That's the tension.
It's a good idea.
She'll manage it. She'll do it. David 22 Swan said Luffy's face in the final panel is just so perfect. Agreed. Straw Hat Luffy 7 said Luffy's Dawn balloon attack was really creative and funny. It's also funny that Gaimon has some chick stuck in a barrel hanging out with him now.
Somebody's not reading the cover stories.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, let's go back in time there, because that cover story is pretty old though. There are a lot of folks who just watch the anime too. And then,
very true.
Yeah, and then they just started reading the manga later, which
Yeah, poor Toei is like, oh man, look at all this stuff we never animated that matters now.
It's so weird to me, right? Like, why didn't they? Like, there's the cover stories, like, some of them did obviously, like with Garp, but like, why do filler? Travis, you don't need to. Oda did it for you. He's holding your hand.
If I had the answers,
don't swat it away.
If I had the answers, the One Piece anime would be better for longer.
Illumino Eye Gaming, this is getting tougher and tougher, said, the giant locked in, that heartbeat working wonders. Who the hell is Emet? The giant probably, but that's incredibly interesting. Also, Vegapunk, can you maybe be a little louder? Your monologue is getting drowned out with the insane fights right now. Would like to know what that inherited will you're getting at is. Yeah, I feel like that's got to be coming pretty soon. It's coming in such scattered bits and pieces. Travis, we should be getting at least one more, like, final revelation. One more. And if it's got to be related to the Will of D, I'm ready for it, Travis. I want to know.
Yeah, it feels like such a bummer that, like, Vegapunk's like, I pray this is, this message reaches those people. And it's like, it's the one part of the message that didn't. Like, yeah, that's cold, man.
Hey, I mean, he did say at the beginning of the message, like, I'll start with the most important part. So his fault. Ignitia said, I need Franky's reaction to the Iron Giant Emet. So many things are happening. Been smiling the entire chapter. I feel like Oda's got to be saving Franky's reaction, and Franky probably, being inspired, let's say, for his next slew of creations based on this.
True. That'd be good.
He even already kind of looks like a General Franky, to be fair. Simba Crown said, I bet Zoe and Emet got turned into those. It couldn't be that they're machines and prehistoric model elephants, since they both were in water. Yeah, so this is kind of similar to what I was talking about last week, right? Of like the, Zoe not necessarily, maybe being like Monster Point version of Chopper or whatever. We'll just have to wait and see, Travis. When do we get that Joy Boy flashback? 5 years?
Oh man,
maybe
probably. like everything is happening, but we're also getting like less pages and less chapters every year. So it's like, we're beelining for that ending, but it still feels like we have ages to go because there's so much that we need to get over. If this is Joy Boy talking, though, it means that sooner rather than later, the anime will have voices for not just Emu, but for Joy Boy as well.
Yeah.
Which feels mind-boggling.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and the anime is getting pretty close.
Yeah.
It's moving right along through Egghead, and Yeah, and in terms of Joy Boy, like we've seen the silhouette of Joy Boy too, and I'm just waiting for the anime to be like, glug 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 glug, Joy Boy is underwater, glug glug glug, Fishman Joy Boy. Sorry, my propaganda snuck in. Hero 2 Anime said, after seeing Dory and Brogy, it's hilarious their eyes popped out, but also their live action counterparts are hot. Also, Dalton's actor is hot too, and I'm looking forward to seeing him as an Anthro Bull. I hope Atlas and Lilith get out from here. Also, Kaku, it's not nice when the betrayal happens to you. Now you know how Polly feels back at Water 7. Very true. Very true. I agree with that. And I haven't been catching up, Travis, with all the live-action casting. I've seen some of it. It's looking pretty good to me. They haven't cast Ace yet, right? We still have our fan casting for the guy in Blue Beetle and
as of
Cobra Kai.
Yeah, as of right now, we do not have an Ace, we do not have a Vivi, and we do not have a Robin, and we do not have a Chopper. Those are the big four to me. And then, of course, there's Crocodile. I feel like that one will be fun.
They're probably saving those, huh?
Yeah.
Snicker Snack said, will Workery still have a whole mustache since his tusk broke?
He just has to drink some milk.
Yeah, there you go. Drink some milk, Luffy and Brook style. Wonder how Emet broke his tusk. Maybe it's the metal he's made of because Haki wasn't enough. If Luffy can conjure things like a baseball bat, can he make his fist metal-like? His power is broken if that's the case. Bonnie's power sure is broken because what if Distorted Future can make her use any devil fruit? She just has to imagine it. If Atlas and Lilith eat food, will that force York to relieve herself? That's pretty funny. That would be such a funny way for them to beat York.
Yeah.
But no, I think that just happens when they sync to Punk Records. But in terms of Emet, yeah, I think there is something to like what Emet is made of that makes him like, there's all kind of like mysterious stuff around these characters. Like, not that he's made of something like sea stone, like something we know of, but like what the red line is made of, what poneglyphs are made of. I'm sure it's something related to that, and that, just kind of makes him something different, built different,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense since we've kind of all pretty much been convinced that the Gorosei have lived this whole time, that there would be some way to harm them from that period of time. Yeah. That might even be the reason to erase it.
Yeah. And in terms of like Bonney being able to use any different, I mean, there've been devil fruits people can use that copy other devil fruits. Like that's not that wild. But also, I think that Bonney is kind of limited to the imagination of it. I think Bonney has to have a clear idea, picture of it. It's like you can't just summon on demand. I don't know. I don't think Bonney is that strong. I think that if that was the case, Bonney could try to imitate what the Gorosei are doing. But I don't. Yeah. We talked about this last week. I don't think she understands the element of what the Gorosei are. So like, what would she say? It's like future in which I'm.
Yeah, it's one of those things like people are like, well, her imagination could think of anything, and it's like, well, it's still contextual, right? Mm-hmm. This is the can God make a hot pocket too hot for him to eat thing, right? Like, there's not really supposed to be an answer to that question. Like it's just supposed to be kind of a smarmy thing, right? And that's kind of what it feels like the talking about her powers are at this point. I'm reminded of the recent SBS translations we've gotten for the new volume that includes Oda saying like, this is an issue of reading comprehension, which is the funniest thing ever because that's what I say all the time. It's like, oh yeah, she could theoretically in like an entirely alternate timeline, just, imagine a future where she's the world's greatest swordsman or something like that. But like, why? The why is a very big factor here.
I agree. Black Knight Halberd 42 said, Bonnie's Nika mode didn't last as long as I'd hoped, but her team-up attack had me dying, and I'm pleasantly surprised she has Haki. Sanji and Franky being the more unhinged ones next to Luffy and Bonney was a great laugh, and Luffy's ingenuity when it comes to attacks is always incredible. Just tank literally everyone's attacks at once. I'm still not sold on the Gorosei being genuine demons and not just awakened devil fruit users, but I still need to see how water affects them. Workery running on the water doesn't prove they're immune because Brook can also do that fine. Hopefully the robot can just physically drag him underwater if he's so freakishly strong. He can snap a tusk when Gear 5th couldn't even dent him. That doesn't work because Jupiter was clearly like moving through the ocean. I think that you can say that like, Emu is in control of like the devil fruit weakness and that they could have a special, like they could be special because of Emu.
Have a different take, and my take is that they're not in the water.
Where are they? Oh, like because the water is like looking different right now.
Yeah, because there's so much motion going on because
it does look pretty weird.
Because like we're getting kind of a weird angle just due to the action and everything. Like, and it doesn't help that scale in One Piece is a nightmare on its best day. How big is Whitebeard? He's however big you need him to be. But you know, the gorosei are huge. They're able to move around quickly. The biggest thing is that the giant ship hasn't gotten that far away from the island. And then Jupiter literally sucks them back up, and they say specifically that they've lost all their progress because he's able to, you know, kind of wind tunnel them back in that direction. So I don't think they're in the water yet. I think we're just getting a weird look at the coast because of the scale of things now.
I don't know if I buy that. I think that, look, there is something weird going on with the water. It could be one of those things where Oda is just trying to make it clear how big the ship is by making the waves look so big so that it's clear it's a big ship. I think it could be as simple as that. I could be way off as well, so I wouldn't presume to know for sure. But I don't know. I mean, I think that there's a lot of water. I mean, if they're in the coast, I mean, I'm sure they're not that like super far away, but they're also like, I think they're in the sea. They're like where the battleships are. I think they're just right outside the island, and there's still plenty of water to be had. I think enough to make a typical devil fruit user feel weak and not be as powerful. But you could argue that, you know, that is part of like why Mercury is vulnerable. You know, it's just not as strong in the sea. Just maybe not as weak to the sea as everybody else, but still a little bit more vulnerable for that reason. I don't know. That could fit.
Yeah. Yeah, possible.
That's all the comments. Fun stuff.
All right. Very fun stuff.
Thanks as always for chiming in. Travis, I don't know for sure what we're talking about next week. It'll probably be an anime or something. We'll have to figure it out. But if you want to, you know, make your voice heard and let us know, like if you want to, you know, use the voice of all things on me and Travis. Unfortunately, you don't have that ability. You're not Momonosuke, but you could go to the Discord. You could email us, rookiepiradio@gmail.com, and just let us know what's something that in the future you'd like us to cover. I know Go Loser Ranger is something that we've been talking about covering on the show, which has it finished its first season, Travis?
Yeah, it has. Yes, as of last week.
There you go. So we could do a full thing. I would just have to finish it. But I did enjoy I watched the first 2 episodes. They're quite nice. But yeah, there's other stuff too. You mentioned before, like My Hero Academia is kind of going strong. There's all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in something or a hidden gem, be sure to hit us up. And we'll be sure to see you on the next episode of Rookie Pirate Radio, and hopefully be back for 1120 in the next couple of weeks or so. See you, everybody.